Hey everyone, it's Evelyn. Now that we're well into the throes of spring bulbs, and now that I actually have to place my spring flowers, early spring flowers from fall bulbs, and I have to get my fall bulb order in for next year. The deadline's actually June 1st, so in theory I have, a month or so to put that order in. But a lot of flower farmers have put their order in already a month ago, and the later you put it in, the bigger chance with a wholesaler you have of them being sold out. But I don't really like to place my order before end of April, beginning of May, because I want to get a good idea of how the fall bulbs that I'm selling this year in the spring as flowers do at my flower wagon, because I'm still pretty new to the wholesale game. I only had my wholesaler started with them last year, so the previous year in fall. So 2023 in the fall was when I placed my first order. And I only placed one hyacinth, one daffodil, and one tulip because I wanted to know how it was going to go with the wholesaler. Now, I had to buy other things because the wholesaler that I use, you have a minimum order of everything that you have to buy. But with that, you can actually buy smaller quantities than a lot of wholesalers require. For instance, the hyacinths, I only have to buy 50 bulbs of one thing. The daffodils, it's 75, and the tulips, it's 100. So what I did is the first year to supplement after the one hyacinth, one daffodil, and one tulip that's where I bought all my Globemaster and Ambassador alliums as well as the hair alliums to top up my order to what it needed to be. So based on how things did with that, so for this year, I liked working with the wholesaler. So then my experiment was to really increase what I had for spring bulbs. So I bought more hyacinths. For daffodils, I bought an early daffodil and an early to mid daffodil. And for tulips, I bought an early, mid, and late tulip. And that's what I wanted to buy. So I looked under those categories to decide what I wanted to buy. And that's what we're going to go over in this video, and how they worked and how that will affect my order that I will be placing pretty soon right after this video, because I've been putting a lot of thought into it right up till this point. So before we get into the video, don't forget that on Wednesday is going to be my Q&A for the month of April. And if you haven't got your questions in by the end of Sunday, then they won't be answered in the Q&A, because I decided leaving it for Monday morning was just leaving it a little bit too tight for me to actually film it on Monday. So the questions will have to be in by the end of Sunday. So anyway, let's get on with what we got here. And so as you know, I sell my hyacinths, daffodils, and tulips not as cut flowers in bunches, but in 1-gallon pots, 3 bulbs per pot, up at my flower wagon, which is up on the road. I'm on a fairly busy road, and I sell them for $10 a pot. So this is a picture of what my flower wagon looks like up on the road. So then last year, because it was my first year literally ever growing hyacinths, and since what I ordered they didn't have, and they asked me if I wanted something else, and I said, yes, please. And then what they sent me wasn't what they said they would send me. In fact, it was a combination of 2. And I think one is Woodstock, which is the purplier one, and I'm not 100% sure what the blue one is. I'm looking at my computer here, and I'll have things up on the screen here. But it was a combination of the 2. And because it was just a lot of 50, I sold out. So the hyacinths, pardon me, did really, really well. I was very happy with how they did, never having sold hyacinths before. So for that reason, I wanted to increase the hyacinths that I was going to have available for this year. Now, I liked the idea of having the mixed collection of hyacinths in one pot. I thought that looked really good. So this year what I wanted to do is I wanted to do a combination of 3 different ones in a pot. I wanted to do City of Harlem, which is a yellow one. I wanted to do Gypsy Queen, which looks orangey in the picture, but apparently is more coral in color in real life. And I wanted to do Pink Pearl. So the pot would have a combination of 1 yellow, one corally orange one, and 1 pink one. And I thought that would be really, really beautiful. Now, they did not phone me to tell me that they didn't have the Gypsy Queen, which was the coral orangey one. And what they did was is they supplemented it with a second lot of pink pearl, which means that mixed there would be 2 pinks and 1 yellow, which I didn't actually want and or like. So if they had asked me that, my order was actually big enough because my minimum of $500 was actually closer to 700. So my order would have been big enough for me to say, no, just send me the pink and the yellow, or replace the pink with something else if you have it. And if you don't have it, I just want 1 lot of pink and 1 lot of yellow. But they didn't phone me and they didn't ask me, which they had done the previous year. And instead they sent the 2 pinks. However, they didn't charge me for the second pink. So I wasn't upset because I basically got 1 lot of pinks for free. And they may have done that simply because it filled the box up, although that would be a strange thing to do, to fill the box up with some free bulbs. They could have just put an empty box in there. And I did it. I did the 2 pink and I did the yellow in one gallon pot. And I wasn't sure what I was going to think of that. In fact, when the pinks started blooming first, and I would turn the pots on the street so that you saw the 2 pink and not the yellow coming up, because I wasn't sure if I was going to like that yellow in with it, and I'm still not sure I liked it with it in there. But the thing that was interesting was that the pink hyacinths started blooming long before the yellow. So that actually didn't work well. Well, it worked well or it didn't, depending on how you look at it, because your pot of hyacinths lasted longer. So the pink ones came up big and full and luscious and beautiful and looked absolutely fantastic. The yellow one was like taking forever to come up. And then when it finally did come up, it wasn't as big and I'm going like that. It wasn't as big and luscious as the pink ones. It was I would say the diameter on it was about 2/3 of the diameter on the pink one. Sorry, I've got an itchy nose. The diameter on the yellow hyacinths was about 2/3 of the pink one, so definitely not as big. And it came up later, like I said, and it was overpowered by the pink. Still, I only paid for 2 lots. I only paid for 100 bulbs. So I got 50 bulbs for free. So basically I had 50 pots in total, because 3 times 50 is 150, divided by 3 bulbs per pot is 50. And I ended up selling 37 pots of them before it was really quite sudden. We had quite warm days, and all of a sudden the pink hyacinths just flopped. Had the yellows been separate, I could have sold the yellow hyacinths in pots longer. So I will not mix hyacinths again for that reason, because I could have actually extended the hyacinth season because of the fact that they didn't bloom at quite the same time. And in fact, this fall, the ones that are left over, I have cut back the pinks because they're dead and flopped. The yellows are still going, but there's only 1 in a pot. But what I've done is I've marked it with a barbecue skewer. So in the fall, before it comes time to replant pots, I'm going to take the bulbs out of the pots that they're in and separate out the yellows and have them in their own 1 gallon pots, because they will bloom a little later than the pink ones that I have left. But anyway, I ended up selling 37 out of the 50 pots. But I only paid for 35. So realistically, I sold out of the ones that I paid for, and then I had 2 bonus sales. So knowing that, I will not be buying 3 lots for this upcoming season. I will be buying 2 lots, which I know I can sell. And then left over and beyond that will be the pinks, the pink pearl, and what was the yellow one called? City of Harlem from this year can fit into there. And not, because I sold out last year, I don't really know how well the hyacinths will do in pots on their second year. They do great in the garden. I'm assuming they'll do well in the pots. But if they don't do well, I still have enough, and I don't need much more based on this year's sale than 2 lots. So if they do well, it will still give me that buffer for much more sales. Now, I did do a post in my in the post section, wherever that shows up. For me, it shows up in my feed on my phone when people put it there. And I asked people I said, if I do another pink, I put 4 up there because really I wanted to get an idea of what people were drawn to the most. Should I do a second lot of pink pearl? Should I do one of Jan Beau's, which is much more of a raspberry color, a deeper pink? Should I do one of Delft Blue, which is a lighter blue? Or should I do one of Woodstock? Tell me the one that you think I should not do. And surprisingly, nobody wanted me to do Woodstock. It was definitely the one that everybody thought that I should leave out. Now, I'm not going to do the second one, a pink pearl, because I have plenty of them. So I am going to order the Deft Blue and the Jan Beau for my next year's sales, based on my observations of this year and last year. And really looking forward to that. So then, last year, for daffodils, because daffodils basically come on right after the hyacinths with an overlap. Last year, I did Electris Split Cup, and it was a beautiful, beautiful daffodil. And where's my notes on that? Here they are. That's not my notes. This is my notes. And I sold out of 25 pots, because you have to buy a minimum lot of 75, 3 bulbs a pot is 25 pots. I sold 22 of them. And I thought that was pretty good. So I figured that's pretty close to selling out. The problem with the, what did I say it was called? Electris Split Cup is that it was pricey. It cost me 95 cents a bulb. And when I did the math after the fact with all my labor, now my costs are the cost of the bulb, which in the case of the Electris Split Cup Narcissi or daffodil, the bulb was 95 cents. The pot I buy recycled, and originally I bought a lot of 500 pots from a rhododendron nursery that was going out of business because the person who ran it had passed away, and his wife was just sort of put everything up on Facebook Marketplace, and my friend saw the pots on there and offered to go pick them up for me, and I bought 500 at 50 cents a pot. But this was quite a few years ago, because I've been doing bulbs and pots longer than I've been working with the wholesaler. I bought the 500 at 50 cents, which I've gone through pretty well all of those. I've been given a lot of pots for free just from people in the neighborhood or wherever when they're coming to my flower wagon. The next time they come, they'll put pots behind my flower wagon for me to use. And now a lot of people, because our dump is quite a ways away. It's a half-an-hour drive down the highway. So what people are doing now is they're actually taking their 1-gallon pots to like the Restore for Habitat for Humanity, and they sell them for 25 cents each. So whenever I see them in there, I buy them at 25 cents each. So my pots are basically averaging 25 cents a pot. So the cost of the bulb, 3 bulbs per pot. In the case of these Electris Split Cup Narcissi, that's 95 cents times 3. So, $2.85. 25 cents for the pot. So now we're at $3.10. My soil is from the garden. And yeah, that's it. That's my costs, $3.15. But I pay myself $30 an hour labor. And with the split cup, with the Electris Split Cup Narcissi, at $30 an hour labor to sell all the pots is a complete break even with zero profit. And why that's not good is because profit needs to go into your overhead, which would be toner costs for the printer, which would be, I don't know, whatever other stuff that you buy in multiples that don't factor into each individual flower costs. So I did not think that that was a price for a bulb that I wanted to repeat, no matter how much I loved it. So I decided that I would instead try a different daffodil that had a similar look, but unfortunately didn't have that bright orange center. It had this much more softer tangerine color, and I thought that would sell really well too, because otherwise it was much the same daffodil, and that is the Cum Laude daffodil. Now, I think the Cum Laude daffodil is quite beautiful, but what I wasn't expecting as an early daffodil was just how early it was going to bloom. It actually started blooming almost the exact same time as the hyacinths. It was like about 2 or 3 days later, after the pink hyacinths had really opened up to show their color, and I got the flower wagon up and running. 3 days later, the Cum Laudes all started opening up. Well, that was unfortunate, because up next to all that bright pink, they really looked washed out. So they did not sell well at all. I think, so out of 25 pots, because again, it's a lot of 75, I only sold 2 before they collapsed from the heat, from the same heat that ended the pink hyacinths, ended the cum laude daffodils. And in fact, they didn't just collapse, they like shriveled up almost instantaneously. It was weird. I mean, one day they were looking beautiful, and 2 days later they were all shriveled up. So I have 23 pots of those left over. Now, you could say that that is a huge fail, except that the very first evening we had where I could go sit out on the deck in the very early night or very late evening, whatever you want to call it, around midnight, because I love sitting out there at that time because the sky is so dark. And if it's a non-cloudy day, you can see the stars. If the moon's up, it lights up the ocean, which is really beautiful. And then we see the lights from Quadra Island across the stretch of ocean between us and them. And I was looking down at the far end of our deck where we have planters, and I was thinking, I just don't have anything to put there in the spring, because I used to always put spring bulbs, tulips actually, to be more specific, orange emperor tulips, because they came back year after year after year, and I had 1-gallon pots in those little planters, and it looked really beautiful. But since I started selling my spring flowers up at the Flower Wagon, I haven't been doing that because I've been selling all the ones that I buy. And I was thinking, it's just a shame I don't have anything in those pots, because that would look really pretty. And then it dawned on me, I have 23 pots of cum laude daffodils, and I need 20 pots for that stretch along our deck, which, as you can see here in this picture that I'm going to put up, is really quite beautiful at night. The pots that are in the planters right now are small sage plants that were in there from last summer, which aren't doing anything. They don't even have leaves on them yet. So it would look really nice to have those full of the cum laude daffodils. So that's what I'm going to do next year. So fail for the flower farm, perfect for the back of my deck. So I'm really looking forward to having those next year on the deck. So realistically, the failure of the 22 pots at the Flower Wagon made me realize that I can use those there. And that's actually earlier than tulips too. So I'm actually really happy about that, because I had been thinking of buying something next year to put in there, and now I don't have to. I have them. So, lemonade out of lemons. I also, like I said, bought a mid-early daffodil, and the one I got was Tahiti, because I've bought Tahiti before and I love it. And it is a stunning daffodil, and these ones cost me, I never said what the cum laude cost me. Let me just double check on that for a sec. So the cum laude last year, cost me, 75 for $40.50. So I didn't do the breakdown on them. And I didn't tell you what the hyacinths cost for this upcoming issue. Things have gone up in price. So sorry, I've got my face off the computer. Last year, I don't know why I had said in the video that the highest previous video that the hyacinth bulbs cost me 43 cents. They did not. They cost me 71 cents each. I'm going to bring my computer a little bit closer so I don't keep putting my face off the camera. The hyacinths cost me 71 cents each, or $35.50 for the lot of 50. That's the ones that I sold this year. Next year, they've gone up in price to 78 cents each. 75 cents for the Delft Blue. Yeah, Delft Blue. And 78 cents for the Jan Bow. The Tahiti daffodil, which is what we're talking about, cost me, in the first year, 75 for $41.25. No, that's what they're going to cost me this year, because I'm going to buy them again. I'm sorry, I'm a little confused here. I didn't put down the price of what they were last year. It doesn't really matter, but everything's gone up a bit in price. So I'm going to buy the Tahiti again, because they were stunning and people were buying them. And then I had an issue that I have to fix. I did not actually remember that how tall the stems on the Tahiti were, and they maybe weren't quite as tall as they ended up being because of the way I had kind of stored them in the garden. So I had put all the 1-gallon pots together in a block right up against each other, no space between them. So for that reason, when they were growing, just like with cut flowers, when you plant them really close together, they probably get taller. So the Tahiti daffodils probably got taller. And this is the first year I had done that more. In other years, I had actually put them out in lines, um, like around the dahlia beds, etc. So things didn't necessarily have to get quite as tall, but I didn't feel like taking the effort to do that. But I may have to do something like that with the Tahiti next year because the stems got really tall. And unfortunately, with the stems getting really tall, and because they were up against each other and moving together, when each time I took a pot away, the long stems would just kind of fall over with the weight of the flower head. So they hadn't developed the strength that they needed to stand up tall. So that was a bit of an issue. They would fix themselves after about 1 or 2 days at the flower wagon, but unfortunately, we had a pretty decent windstorm come through, and because of how tall and weak the stems were with those heavier heads, a lot of the heads broke and fell over. Wow. My reduced sales on the Tahiti, not reduced sales, but the lack of total sales that I have on the Tahiti is partially due to the fact that every time it got windy, the daffodils at the flower wagon, their heads would the stems would fold over on some of them because their heads were too heavy. So that was a mistake on my part that I need to fix for next year. However, I did end up selling 11 so far because they're still blooming, and I still have 367 up at the flower wagon that don't have any broken heads. All the rest that aren't at the flower wagon have broken heads. So I sold 11 of the 25. I have 7 that I can still sell. That's still only 18 out of 25. So 7 of them are not saleable. But again, that's an unfortunate mistake on my part. I really like the Tahiti daffodils, and depending on how many I'm left with at the end of the season, and see, this is where I don't like to place my order yet. I may or may not buy more Tahiti for next year because they are beautiful, or I may buy a different one, and I haven't made up my mind on that yet, because I still have approximately half of them left, which means I've got as many left as I sold. Maybe I shouldn't buy another batch of Tahiti, even though I love them so much. I should buy another one. Yeah, I should, but I don't know what it's going to be yet. Keep looking in my posts. I'll probably put it in my posts and sometime this upcoming week to let you know which one I've decided to replace Tahiti with because I still have so many left. Yeah, I didn't show you the picture that I have of what they look like in the garden. So this is what they look like in the garden. So you can see even here, the heads are looking a little heavy and they're kind of tipping down. And if I had placed the pots separately farther apart, the heads wouldn't have quite tipped down as much. They would have had stronger stems as they started to grow. They would have gotten stronger. And I remember that because I've had Tahiti before and I didn't have that issue with them. But I also didn't store them in blocks like that. So now we're going to move on to tulips. So last year I grew only the mid variety of tulips because I figured if I was only going to grow one, it wouldn't be an early and it wouldn't be a late, it would be a mid. And what I bought was Helmar. And I really liked it in photo, and I've mentioned in previous videos that that's not what it looked like when it bloomed in my garden. The yellow was very, very pale, and the purple was more like a brighter red. And I didn't actually like the look of it at all. I didn't think it was a pretty tulip. But surprisingly enough, I still managed to sell 15 of the 33 pots. I didn't even think I'd sell that many. I thought that that was an absolute failure because of what the tulips looked like. They weren't even big heads. They were just... I didn't like them, and I wasn't surprised that I only sold 15 out of the 33 pots. But because I wanted to try for this year with the wholesaler and experiment and buy a lot more of each thing, like I did with the daffodils, I doubled because I got an early and a mid-early, and the hyacinths I am, I bought, it's supposed to be 3 different colors, but what ended up being 2. With the tulips, I also decided to buy an early, a mid, and a late instead of just a mid. And I decided that I was going to buy for early one that was a safe color because I knew everybody would like it. But before I tell you what it is, please don't forget to subscribe and give me a like if you haven't already. Really appreciate it. Okay, now I'll tell you what it is. So the tulip that I bought as an early tulip was Pretty Princess. What I didn't know about Pretty Princess, because it doesn't show in the picture in the catalog, which you can see up here, is it has really beautiful leaves that are just edged with a white detail. Really, really pretty, even when it's not blooming. When it did bloom, the stems are quite a bit shorter. It would not make a good flower, but in a 1-gallon pot, it's beautiful. And I have sold to date of the Pretty Princess 15 of the 33, but they're still going strong. So I'm pretty happy with the Pretty Princess, and I am going to buy another lot of them because I can find absolutely nothing wrong with them. So then we move on to my mid tulip, and I decided to get Rem's Favorite, which is a white tulip, as you can see, with the purple striations running through it. Now, what was interesting about Rem's tulip is it shot up long stems and bud forms before the early tulip did, Pretty Princess. I was thinking, did I label the pots wrong? Because this one's going to bloom before the other one, and it stayed in bud form forever. And then Pretty Princess put up its buds and opened up first, like it's supposed to, because it's the early one. And Rem's Favorite, which is a mid tulip, started blooming about a week later. So it was in bud form forever. The thing that I don't like about Rem's Favorite, because I quite like the way it looks at the flower wagon with everything else, is that it's now finishing. Its leaves are all going yellow. Pretty Princess is not. It's still motoring along, looking as fresh as the first day the flower heads open. But the Rem's Favorite are starting to yellow in the leaves. Not so much the flower heads, but the leaves are looking yellow. So that starts to make the 1-gallon pot look a little older. And it's ever since those 2 days of really hot weather that we had, it's been doing that. So its sales just really started to slump off at that point. So of them, I have only sold 10 of the 33. And I don't know how many more I'm going to sell because the leaves are starting to not look great. So it's not one that I'm going to repeat. If I do have a bunch left over, it will give me pots to replace the cum laude daffodils on my deck with for tulips next year when they flesh out again for next year. Because I probably and I'll put a few up at the flower wagon. I'll fill up the pots. Those pots like they're troughs, so they hold 4 1-gallon pots. But I can always reduce it to 3. And I can put some of them up at the flower wagon, but enjoy how much it beautifies my deck. So I'm fine with that as well. The third tulip that oh, by the way, and if you look at them in this picture that I'm going to put up, the Rem's Favorite really does look stunning as a grouping. So the third tulip that I ordered for this year, which is a late tulip, is called Greenland. And I think it's going to be pretty. I don't know. There's no flower on those yet. That's definitely a late tulip, which is good because Rem's is finishing. I don't know when Pretty Princess is going to finish, but I may, in theory, hopefully sell out of them before Greenland even opens. I don't know. But also it would be, since the Tahiti, so many of the Tahiti daffodils have got broken necks on them, I'm going to, once the ones that are at the flower wagon that are gone, it would be nice to have something to replace them with. So hopefully that will be the Greenland tulips. And hopefully they look pretty. There is no sign of color on the tulip buds that are just starting to form and grow. So that's an unknown at this point. When they bloom, I will take a picture of them, and then you'll find out along with me what they look like then. But yeah, it's a complete unknown, which is a bit of a dilemma, because I don't know if I should be buying those again next year or not. I have no idea what they look like. Now, as far as next year goes, I am going to buy Pretty Princess. I mentioned that. That's a given that I'm going to buy another one of those because I love the way they look. They are 100 tulips for $67 or 67 cents each for my upcoming order. For the mid tulip, what I'm going to get to replace the Rems, because I wasn't happy with how the leaves are starting to yellow, I'm going to get National Velvet, which works out to 53 cents a bulb, which is cheaper than the Pretty Princess by by a chunk, I think. 53 cents versus what was Pretty Princess? 67 cents. Yeah, quite a bit difference. And for the late tulip, well, at this point, I think it's going to be Greenland. I hope Greenland does well. It's a guess at this point. That's one reason I've been holding off and placing my order. I don't know what the Greenland tulips look like. So those are what, if I decide that I don't want to buy another lot of Greenland and buy something else, the second choice for a late tulip will be Pink Impression. So you tell me, and that's 53 cents. So that's, what was Greenland again? I've already forgotten. Greenland was 47 cents. So there are 5 cents difference, which isn't that bad. Which would you buy, the Greenland or the Pink Impression as a late tulip? Let me know in the comments, because at this point I'm undecided, having not seen what Greenland looks like. We'll see. I may just decide to go with Pink Impression, and then at least I can, the following year, go back to Greenland if I preferred it, but then I'll have a comparison of another late tulip at least. I don't know yet. It's so hard when you have to place your order so soon. So that is what I bought for tulips and daffodils and hyacinths, but that is not all that I bought on my bulb order. I also, for the first time last year, placed an order for Muscari, most specifically grape ice Muscari, because it looked really cute in the catalog, and I really liked those little snow caps on the purple, and I thought, I bet you I'm going to really, really like those. And when they came up, some of them have more of a blue cap on them, as you can see in this picture that I'm about to put up. Now, I did not expect to like the grape ice Muscari as much as I did. I thought that they were one of the most beautiful little, short little flowers that you can find, and I was absolutely smitten with them. So one of the things that I want to do after seeing how much I love them is if you've seen in any of my before videos, in our front garden, to go up to the street, you have to walk up 3 steps to a landing area that has a gate that you open up, and then goes up another 3 steps to the flower wagon, and then there's parking. Now, when we got our dogs, Esri and Leela, who aren't home right now, that's why they haven't interrupted this video, when they were puppies, in order to puppy-proof that landing so they couldn't accidentally get out onto the busy road, first of all, we put a gate up at the top of the first 3 steps that you walk up to in a garden, and that was simply to keep the puppies from getting onto the landing. But then as they got a little bit older, they were jumping up onto the landing from down below. So we built out a little shelf and then put more troughs along there, planters, and just planted stuff. Nothing important, because they kept, when they were coming home from anywhere, instead of waiting for a gate to be open, they'd like try to jump over and into the garden and constantly knock the troughs off that little deck that we have there. So those troughs are all just thrifted secondhand ones that are really old and bowing out and somewhat junky looking, but they kept getting knocked over. So putting anything nice there would be pointless, because they were falling down 3 feet to the ground and rolling all the time. And it's never looked really good, but its purpose again was to keep the dogs from jumping up onto the landing. Well, they're going to be 5 this summer, so that purpose has mostly finished, and they're much bigger now. So while Leela will stand there and patiently wait for you to open the gate for her, Esri wants to get her ball as fast as possible and still leaps over them. And for the first time this spring, she's adjusted her jump. Instead of running through them and knocking them over, not all the time, she very gracefully jumps over them. So, well, it wasn't even the spring. It just happened sometime over the course of the past year. I all of a sudden noticed this spring that they're not getting knocked off that landing again. So I can plant nicer stuff in them that I don't have to worry about breaking. And eventually I will replace those really old looking troughs for something nicer looking, because they're not getting knocked over all the time. But what I want to do is I want to put the Muscari in there, because I think it's a really, really beautiful flower. And because I can buy them wholesale, it will make it more affordable to fill up those 4 troughs with a lot of Muscari. And I did do another post where I said, which of these Muscari is your least favorite? but I've actually decided to buy one of each. So I have the grape ice muscari, which I can dig up when they start to yellow off in the cut flower bed that they're in the back garden. I can dig more of them up and have them ready. And then I'm going to also buy the latifolium, which has the blue tops. I think there's some of those mixed in with my grape ice. Would not surprise me because some of them definitely have bluish tops, or at least cross-pollinated with them. And they're cheap. You can get 100 of them for only $11, which means they're only 11 cents each. So I am not complaining about that price because to get 100 bulbs, Muscari bulbs, for $11, even if it's not the favorite one, it's filler. I'm also going to get Mount Hood, which has the white top on the blue. And those are 100 for $22 or 22 cents each. So exactly double the price. I've got the grape ice muscari. And then the fourth one is Pink Sunrise. Now this is the shocker. Pink Sunrise is 100 for $94. They are almost $1 each. But was it the latifolium? Yeah, the latifolium's only 11 cents each. And whoops, on my computer, I just went the wrong way. And the Mount Hood is only 22 cents each. So the fact that the Pink Sunrise is 94 cents each, if you mix them all together and divide it by 3, that kind of makes that one seem a little bit more affordable. But holy cow, that one's expensive. But isn't it pretty with its pink? So I'm going to get those, and I'm going to put those in those 4 planters that face troughs, that face the garden beds on the landing before you go out to the road, to make that look pretty in the early spring. But I'm also going to make it even prettier by starting off with some Mount Everest galanthus, or snowdrop. So that'll come up first. They'll have some pretty white flowers in the troughs first. And they are 40 cents each, or 100 for 40. Then following them, I'm going to do 3 types of large crocuses. I'm going to do the aqua crocus, which is 30 cents each, or $30 for 100. I'm going to do the large flowering purple crocus, 30 cents each, or $30 for 100. And I'm going to do the large flowering striped beauty, 30 cents each, or 30 for 100. So I will have the snowdrops, then the crocuses, then all the muscari coming up through the various stages of the early spring. And I think that's really important because when you're at the flower wagon and you look into my property, you actually see what's happening in those troughs. So to make them look pretty is, I think, really important for the flower wagon, much the same as a shop window is important for a store. So I'm very excited about having all of that as early flowers in my troughs that line the landing up there. And when they're done, then so the grape ice muscari that I have in the garden, it's just starting to finish. So that will give me color up until the end of April based on this year's weather. When they start to finish, what I'm thinking of is having another 4 sets of troughs ready to go with, I don't know yet. No, and next year that might just be annuals. It might just be basically what I did this year, which was pansies, and I put in each one a small heather in purple colors, and I think that was it. And then I bought the pansies because they were on the clearance at the end of the season at the garden center, so they were cheap. So I might have those ones ready to go because pansies will still bloom for quite a while in our climate here, or not. I don't know yet. That's a next year issue. But I do know that I want to have the 4 troughs that they're starting early with really beautiful early color, with all of the muscaris, the snowdrops, and the crocuses. So another bulb that I'm going to buy for next year is Purple Sensation Allium. I mentioned already that I have grown the Globemaster Allium last year already, fell in love with it, love them. Would like to have more, but they're expensive, so I'm going to wait a year or 2 or whatever to recover my costs and make some profit on them before I increase the amounts of those that I have. They are not cheap. Do I have the price of them here? So through my wholesale company that I buy from, And this is the price that I paid for them, not last fall, but was it last fall? Well, I had them last summer, so the fall before last summer. They were 15 for $96 or $6.40 each, and that's a wholesale price. So they're still pretty expensive. So that's why I don't really want to increase the amounts that I have yet, but I did love using them. I also tried out the hair oleum, which I loved, which cost me $46.50 for 150. I have since found out that Purple Sensation Oleum is usually definitely in our climate blooming for Mother's Day, and that's thanks to Marie at Florists on Farms. She, in a little thread that we were talking back and forth, she had told me that they were blooming for her in Mother's Day in almost exactly the same climate that I have. I'm just much closer to the sea than her. So that's really exciting. So I'm going to add in an order of Purple Sensation Oleums, which is going to cost me $38 for 100, so 38 cents each. And then they will actually start blooming before the Globe Master, which blooms before the Ambassador. So I'm looking forward to having those for next year. And then something that I actually bought last fall that I should be having for this year, and I don't, is the Meleagris alba and the Meleagris or snake's head Fritillaria or checkered lily, if you know it by that name. And in both the alba and the snake's head, I purchased 100 for $25 or 25 cents each. So basically 200 bulbs, combination of the two. I don't have one. So out of 200 bulbs, not one. So that was an absolute failure, and that is disappointing because I really do like snake's head, Meleagris. And yeah, I don't know why not a single one of them came up. That just blows my mind. But they didn't. I don't have them, and that was a failure. So that's what I have for the spring bulbs that are coming up. I, of course, have an awful lot of awful lot, not an awful lot compared to much larger flower farmers. But for my tiny urban flower farm, I have an awful lot of spring cut flowers to be available for me shortly as well. And I did a video on all of my favorite spring bouquet ingredients because, of course, the bulbs aren't in bouquets. I'm selling those in pots. So if you want to know what my favorite cut flowers are for spring bouquets, check out this video over here. And I will see you on Wednesday for the Q&A. Bye.